Welcome back to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. Again, this is Thursday, the 12th of March, and we are in our consumer protection and general ed. So we are having voted out two bills. Thank you, committee, for doing that work. Really grateful. We are turning to cannabis, and which is one a bill S278 that we've been wrestling with, and I think we've done some hopefully good work, and at least it is what it is, and we'll get it to the other party. So however, we did not finish going through the last little bit of the bill. We had finished, I believe, on section 14, which was the vote, well, or at least was now that I think we struck the local voting, the municipal vote requirement, and we now have a new section 14. So is that correct, Pepper? Is that, yes, that's what we believe where we are. Sorry, the new bill is confusing me because my numbers are, of course, based on the old. Apologies. So, because my understanding is that the where we are was section 16, which was the 2-year product registration. That I believe that was the 2-year employee licenses. It was section 16, and the longer product registrations, and that is that now the new section 12. That's the section 12, okay, because we cut out so much, okay. Okay, so advertising is out of this now, and we're punting that to the House, correct? Is that correct? Okay, great. And so now we're at section 12, which is the municipal, and I see, we're at the bottom of page 12, section 12, and it's the is this the 2-year? Yes, this is the product and employee 2-year. Yes, Pepper, come in if you kind of testify with us on this, because I have the right. There's a proposal to take the employee licensure. Anyway, Pepper, you take it away.
Okay.
There's a proposal to take this both to 2-year, and there are some issues with that, as I recall.
Right. Okay. So for the record, James Pepper, Chair of the Cannabis Control Board, and I'm looking at the most recent draft 2.1 from 9:51 p.m. last night. And yes, I'm looking at section 12, which there's 2 fees that the Cannabis Board assesses. One is for anyone who's plant touching, that's working for a cannabis establishment, needs to get a background check and it's a employee ID card. And that's currently an annual fee of $50. The proposal is to allow that, to change that to a biennial fee and increase the rate to $100. I just, we have no issue with that. We already only require people get background checks and do their employee education once every 2 years. So this actually in some ways syncs up with that. Totally fine from us. From our point of view, I do just have a global note that anytime we have to change anything in our licensing portal, it costs us money and takes time. So this won't be an overnight decision, but it will be easy enough to implement. It's a little bit more complicated, and I'll speak to this as far as the product 2-year product registration option. Is when you have an option. You have a drop-down menu, and you can pick either 1 or 2 years. That's a lot more IT work on the back end. So what this does is just says, now an employee ID card is good for 2 years. It makes it much easier for us to do. On the product registration for 2 years, what this suggests is that for certain products that will remain shelf stable, the board has the discretion to offer them longer product registrations. So this is a little bit of a complicated issue here. We don't disagree that there's an administrative burden to registering products. It's also the cornerstone of a regulated market. This is where we look at test results. This is where we make sure that products are compliant with all the regulations. They're free from adulterants and they meet the potency caps and everything else. Certain products are absolutely going to be shelf stable for 2 years. Tinctures, topicals, certain edibles, depending on how they're stored. Other products are not. I mean, a gummy edible could very likely sit on a shelf for 2 years if it was properly stored, without losing any potency, without growing molds, without any of the kind of adulteration concerns. A chocolate bar or a cookie, something with a it just won't. And so also beverages are in kind of a nano emulsion. Those emulsions separate over time. So what you have is the THC separates from the rest of the beverage. So what we're going to have to do if we do implement this is we could just do kind of a blanket, topicals and tinctures are okay for 2 years. But for everything else, we're going to have to break it down by product type. And, the only thing that I can imagine us doing, because there's no FDA involved. It's not a situation where we have, this is
Right.
us and our kind of neighboring cannabis control boards are all grappling with this stuff. Is we would probably want to do advanced stability testing on certain types of products. And if you can provide us with an advanced stability test saying that your product can sit on a shelf for 2 years, then okay, you can have a 2-year product registration. So, I'm just trying to lay out what this is going to look like in real time. If the idea is that $50 per year is too burdensome, well, we're going to require some pretty burdensome, proof that your product can have a 2-year product restoration. So this is just kind of a risk versus reward scenario. I've written a report about this. You got to have it as part of my record. And I just prefaced all of these decisions that if we have to have a complicated kind of logic tree drop down menu, when I'm registering a cookie, I need to register it as edible, but then have a further drop down menu, an edible with kind of a water pH of this, because that's not going to be shelf stable. And this is my storage conditions. So anyway, all I say is that this section is a little bit problematic for the board from an implementation standpoint.
And if it's problematic, would you prefer we just do 8 and not 9 at the moment? And or is it that what you're recommending?
That's our preference. I know that there's countervailing arguments on the other side, and I do acknowledge that this can be administratively burdensome. It doesn't seem like it is, but for a larger manufacturer, they might have 100 products. Keeping track of 100 different product registrations every year is burdensome.
That's burdensome for you too. It sounds like it's a burden on both sides.
For us, it's a lot easier than trying to have a very complicated, every type of product has a different length of a product registration.
I don't know if this makes it more complicated, but what if it said you could charge a higher one-time fee for that?
For the 2-year?
The testing of that product.
What we would do is just punt to the actual licensee that's trying to register the product, provide that advanced stability testing
Okay.
to us. So the fee's not really the problem.
Okay.
There is going to be upfront IT costs.
Right. So, okay, let me just understand. So, right now, it's once a year.
Right.
So there's still probably a lot of complication just in once a year for what's stable for a whole year.
So the way that our testing works is you have the final form testing that happens when you're registering products.
Okay.
If you make a giant run of products, then it gets tested. We take samples from the beginning, middle, and end. We try and homogenize them. We get a test. The next time you make your next
Of the
batch,
year, you're like,
if
you
you
take
make
samples for
if
a
you make
year.
multiple batches in a year, so
Uh-huh.
if you make 10,000 gummies a year, and then 10,000 another batch, 10,000 gummies, you have to test both of those batches, even if it's the same product.
You,
registration.
the producer.
you the producer.
Uh-huh.
And so we're getting testing at least once a year based upon this once a year product registration.
Uh-huh.
But for the larger manufacturers, we're getting multiple tests. on
Okay.
batches.
What makes it hard to just extend that over 2 years? Like to say, okay, now you have to send us testing
So
for 2 years.
if the idea of this is to reduce the testing costs, which I think that's mostly what it is, there's an administrative burden of registering a product in here, but it's also, I want to make a larger batch, so I only have to test that batch once instead of having multiple
Mhm.
batches. And if it's good for 2 years, we're gonna inevitably see products sitting potentially in a warehouse for 2 years.
Mhm.
And that's fine for certain types of products, but it's certainly not fine for others.
But doesn't that allow you to say never for cookies? We're never doing this for cookies,
Right,
but
this
for
is-
something else.
But if you think about like the DMV and like entering your product into an online
Yeah.
portal, you need to, we need to have a drop down menu saying what type of product. it is.
Right.
That's how it works now. So let's
Yeah.
totally be banned.
And you
Okay.
think that cost prohibitive or just gonna be a 9-year period? Because that's why I'm wondering if a fee would help with the IT cost of that.
Maybe. I mean, essentially, what we would, I mean, we could say just no edibles get a 2-year product registration that we don't have to worry about.
Okay.
And then no beverages do, because we know that some of them are in nano.
Should we add-
separate out?
But you can say that with this language.
We could say that, but we still need to kind of automate the licensing portal. So whatever that looks like, we need to have, instead of just, we need to have a kind of logic tree options that people can select.
But you could omit the logic tree options for all edibles. That would still be your decision.
We could do that under this language.
Mhm.
It's just,
So we don't have to add language, it's still up to your discretion.
you're right. It would still be up to our discretion. I just want to make sure everyone understands we're not the FDA. There's no definitive consensus about what the expiration date or the best by date of these products are.
So your view is that still looking at it all once a year is the best way to maintain
Just
quality.
make sure that we have a test at least once a year, and we know what's in these products at least once a year.
Isn't that more potentially like what if there was a fee that matched the time and effort it took, but you've got to have it like a 2-year horizon
Yeah.
or something.
I just want to say that none of these fees actually
Cover it.
accommodate the
Yeah.
amount of work it takes to do.
Yeah.
this. And that was a conscious decision by the legislature that you can't voice the entire cost of regulation onto the industry. It would just make the whole industry very
Right.
expensive, and only the kind of mega,
Right.
operators would be able to participate.
But we've made that worse, right? And I do think we should have that awareness as this goes forward. I was just talking to the lieutenant governor about this. I had realized that appropriations, after it left the policy committee, essentially said, we're gonna make you like most other departments and agencies, and you have to remit the entire excise tax amount to the general fund. And then the governor now has control over what your budget is. That was a decision that I think has had policy implications about how regulated and supported our market is. That the policy committees never made that decision.
Interesting. Appreciate that. Anyway, on this section, we can return to this, put a pin in it, because I just want to finish the rest of the bill. I think we have a bunch of pin areas to return to for discussion. I'm hoping we're gonna make significant progress by developing.
Right. And the great news about the tail end of this bill, sections 13.
So we're gonna put a pin in number 9. I think we're all okay with number 8. It sounded like there was no. Okay, with number 8 in that. Now we'll move to sections 13 on.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17,
I think the rest, almost the
18, 19, 20. So everything up to 21 it's a lot of words on the paper. All it does is strike the word integrated license, from everywhere it appears in Title 7 and
This is-
Title 32.
Sort of statutory cleanup.
Right. If you want the history lesson, happy to provide it, but integrated licenses don't exist anymore in the standard.
Right, so we're just striking them from statutes.
Yeah.
So this is just.
Purely cleanup. Don't want to do it, it's fine. These can live as appendages and statutes.
No,
It's just
Jen would have our, Jen wants to keep statutes clean and updated as we do the technical corrections. If they don't exist, they shouldn't be there.
Can I just ask if you might be doing something else before these technical sections are done? You sent an email to Tucker.
I have had an opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, but you may have that opportunity. Tucker doesn't have the opportunity to even look at it yet. So
So he's not here before noon.
he's trying,
Okay.
but he is,
I just didn't know if there's something I should be doing to be helpful, but.
no, I think you're fine right where you are. It's good to have you right there. So it strikes me that sections 13 for 21, from what I'm hearing, are statutory cleanup. We're getting rid of something that doesn't exist. Right? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, good. We love that.
Okay.
And then we get, however, to section 22,
Section 22, the cannabis business.
which is on page 20 of the new bill, of draft 2.1. Right?
It's also section 25 at the end, at the bottom of page 19.
That's just something that, so on page 20, lines 4 and 5, that's also just a reference to.
Integrated license. Yeah. So next we go to section 22 and the CBDF grants for cultivators and manufacturers.
So the Cannabis Business Development Fund is a special fund that was economic development fund that was created just in the acknowledgement that none of the technical assistance, business support, certainly at the federal level, but also at the state level, will support cannabis businesses because of their federal entanglements with federal funding, like all the Working Lands Enterprise Board, the Farm Force Liability, there's just all of the, you guys just, I think, just did a bill on all the economic development.
Right?
None of those folks, with
Yes, we,
possibly the exception, although they haven't made their decision yet, the legal fund, if it's law school,
Yeah.
none of them will touch cannabis business. Banks will not loan to cannabis business largely. So you created a business development fund, and you've, over the past 5 years, put a total of 1.5 million in.
every year.
No,
It was
three contributions of $500,000, starting in 2022, and then
So it's 1.5 million in it now.
so you get testimony from
Right.
ACCD because they administer the fund. We don't administer. And by the end of the year, it'll be zero.
Right. So it's been used as it was designed.
It has been.
And so the proposal here, as I recall, is to put $1 million back into it, as I believe, right?
And expand the universe of licensees that are eligible to receive that.
Right.
And we have a report at you guys asked us to write a report. You saw this, the cannabis bill last year. You said, well, there's no economic development in this bill. Where's that? And so, but it was too late. The budget already passed, if you recall, last year. And so you asked us to write a report with the support of ACCD and the Land Item Access Opportunity Board about what they would do with this money if they had it.
I remember that.
And so they said that they would kind of act as a pass-through to some of these agencies that have expressed interest in supporting cannabis businesses, like the law school, small business, legal funds, like Working Lands Enterprise Board, like Foreign Forest Liability. They would act as a pass-through if there was money in the fund to do it.
Right.
And what section 22 does is it expands eligibility for this fund to tier 1 cultivators and manufacturers, the smallest tier, the smallest businesses. Because right now it's just eligible for social equity applicants. Those are people that can demonstrate that they've been harmed historically by
Right.
cannabis programs. contribution.
So it's more willing, yeah.
So this expands eligibility, and instead of $500,000, it would be a one-time contribution of $1 million. And that's to just make sure that the original intent of this fund isn't diluted. The social equity applicants still have the same opportunity from this fund that they had before, because they're adding to new cohort of people. I think tier one cultivators and manufacturers, they have the numbers. They just don't have them off the top of their head.
Right. No, no.
It's in our.
But I remember that it's getting down to the bottom of the barrel, right? Right. So that is what this one, and again, Ted is gonna come in, but I just would refer us all to Ted's fiscal note, which is, does he even mention the $1 million? The appropriation he has here. Yeah. Under appropriations, yeah. Okay. So, and I'm just curious why if we have 23 million coming in from the excise tax, why do we not take it out of that fund?
The excise tax used to be sequestered in a special fund. Last year it was changed to
Right.
its direct deposit into general. So there is no.
After you take your expense?
No.
No. Oh, that's right, we did it just. Yeah, I
No.
wasn't such a big fan of this.
Right. So there's no pot of money to take.
So
it
there's
from.
no pot of
But,
money.
I mean, the excise tax
Unless we
is
say,
accounted for, you know how much it is.
right, just to remind everybody, it was estimated for FY 27 to be 23.6 million. The question I have for you is if we identify in this bill that it comes off before it goes to the general fund, are we able to do that?
Ted would know the answer to that.
Okay, let's ask, because I think that's a question, right, that we might want to consider for the other things.
The only thing that you always kind of want to keep in mind, just to anticipate a fight, is you also, when you moved the money to the general funds, instead of just parking it into cannabis regulation first, is you also said that the 30% contribution to prevention is calculated from the entirety, not just the unexpended portion. So you want to make sure that if you want to hold the prevention money,
Right.
to make sure you don't take
So that the-
30% of that $1 million, right?
Right. I appreciate, but we have other appropriations of this.
Yes. I just wanted to flag that because it's
No, it would
a
be,
big
prevention would still be 30% from the entire amount. Okay. So the next, so that's the first appropriation. The second appropriation is,
So this is 5.6 to the Lane Access and Opportunity Board.
how much have they used last? I mean, what? This is a lot of money.
I don't know the answer to that. And so
I know I think we had testimony about it. Keisha, do you recall? I mean, I can pull up my other cannabis.
Are you talking
File.
about the LAOB? Money?
Yeah, how much did LIOB? Because this is a lot of money. The
Mhm.
question, no one else gave much money this year. The question is, what did they spend last year? What was their appropriation last year? And Ted doesn't have that here.
I mean, here's one of the problems. It was somewhere between 1 and 2 million, I believe. And let's just say it's somewhere between 1 and 2 million. As I understand it, the budget office withheld that money from them and asked them to go back and seek it in the budget adjustment. So I don't want to speak for them. This is the amount of money they came in and talked about would allow them to do their resilience hubs and their work specific to the economic harm that the war on drugs has essentially caused many communities, many rural.
Right, no, I appreciate their purpose.
Yeah.
The question is simply, this is a lot of money. And I don't recall them ever getting this much before. And so I would love to have Ted, if you're listening, and we will ask Ted what they got last year,
Should-
when they got it.
Do you want them floating around?
Yeah,
And maybe.
We have their
someone reach out.
testimony in our file,
Yeah.
and the question is, I've gotta find it, and I know we have it because it's here. But I think that amount is, I think, for me, a question, it's just a lot of money.
So, the second half of the report you asked us to draft, was, A, how much and for what purposes would, cannabis excise tax should go towards cannabis business? So you have that. The second half of that report was, and how much should go towards community reinvestment through the health?
And that's really what this is.
And I think the 5.6
Yeah.
represents just a portion of the excise
And-
tax, similar to what you're doing for prevention.
That's a commitment we made over and over again in our intent in the last decade that we've debated this.
No, I appreciate
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that. It just, we didn't set a percent for that. We didn't, it just.
That's
still-
the problem.
Yeah, and that may have been a problem. I just.
Because
that's what-
most
put it-
people harmed by the war on drugs do not want to go into cannabis production.
That's what we found out, is fewer people wanted to go into cannabis production than we anticipated.
Okay, and the LAOB is gonna join us soon, if that's helpful. I mean, they're happy to just be sitting on the side and be clear.
Or they can just zoom in and we can ask questions.
They're walking here.
They're in the building.
They're close by.
Oh, I didn't know where this was. Okay, great. So then let's just put a pin in that. Thank you. I think that takes us to the end of the bill. And now we can begin discussion on the 3 areas that we asked you to go back, and Pepper, why don't you just stay
Yeah,
there
yeah.
because we.
Can I ask a process question? Do you?
Yes, I just want to clarify what those areas were.
Yes. Well, do you want to have that discussion and then we email Tucker something?
Yes, because
Okay.
we don't want to have Tucker waste. And Sophie's here also. So remember, Sophie's also.
I didn't know. I
I'm
must
just
say
taking
yes.
over.
Are you helping? You're helping Tucker with this.
She's taking over for Tucker when he goes on paternity leave. So she's
Oh, is-
dealing with this bill. She's getting booted up to speed on
Oh,
this bill
great. Okay.
for us.
I don't even think I knew.
So she'll be.
I'm just
mostly-
basically thinking this. Welcome to camp.
Yeah, she's so excited. So, well,
We can go
my
through this.
understanding is that potency, so, let me just go through this and clarify this so that we know what we're talking about. My understanding is that potency, they will come back to us maybe in an amendment. My understanding also is that my hope for triggers, if the federal action occurs, that the trigger discussion, Tucker doesn't have the time to draft that now, that will come as an amendment also. That so that the
Okay.
governor could pull together a compact in a heartbeat, depending on the federal things. It would
And
trigger
somebody else is working on the triggers piece.
I am.
Okay.
with Tucker and Pepper. And
Okay.
we're looking at what, New Jersey's looking at, we're looking at the West Coast. And we're coming up with language that we will hope we can do as a committee, but we're gonna do that. Hopefully it's an amendment. It doesn't have any money piece in it. So it could go without having to go to finance or, pros. So I just wanted, because sold a number of you that I was hoping this would be part of the bill, but it just, we've run out of time. So my understanding is that you were working on events permits, delivery permits, correct?
That's right.
Events permits, delivery permits, and advertising, we've decided we're gonna leave for the House to deal with. And the, what was the third thing you were working on?
Advertising, is it?
But we've
Those were
decided,
this week.
okay, so advertising, we've decided to let go and do more work on in the House.
Yes, and we do have we did return back to this. Part of the conversation about delivery and on-site consumption returns us back to the question of what we do about non-operating towns, what do we opt-out towns?
Right, exactly.
And that returned us to the question of a local cannabis local option tax. So I do think that just returns us to that discussion. We want, in my mind, on-site consumption pilot and delivery pilot to happen in places that don't have retail. And that gets us back to the question of how do you incentivize communities to do their own minor level of regulation and oversight?
If they haven't voted to actually have it in there.
Exactly, that if they're allowing a one-time permit, for consumption, for a consumption event, or or delivery. And then really, this gets us back to the Amazon question. Like, we can't, I don't think it's good policy to start saying you can't deliver in towns that have said no to retail. That's a big kind of, like, consumer question of what decisions people can make from their own home.
That's what we bump into with delivery. That is, I think, why I felt we haven't had the time to really dig into it and was happy to move the events, but not the delivery and let the house work further on delivery. It just needs some more time because that's a big question, isn't it?
Mhm.
Which is, are you undermining the town's, what's the right word? It's not authority, not integrity, but their choice to not.
But that's a choice not to retail.
It's
a
a
choice
choice,
not
but
to.
That's a different choice.
It is
Yeah,
a
you
different
can't
choice.
smoke pot in your house. Like, I don't,
I think
Yeah.
you could, there are dry towns to which alcohol is delivered.
exactly.
So
That's exactly.
I think,
You can't stop someone from getting something in the mail, I feel like.
and will not be delivered by mail for those of you who
No.
are listening.
But wine and beer.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
That's next.
And they are able to be delivered to dry towns.
Mhm.
Amazon.
I mean, in a way, that could come before our craft market has the
Yeah,
opportunity.
but that's the problem. We
That's
want to
the problem.
protect our craft.
You could have
market.
THC beverages entering our state that are
So-
not helping our craft.
So given that challenge,
Yes.
what did you guys come up?
So I just need to back up for 1 second and just, you have this comparison chart that I provided.
Oh, let me pull it out.
Well, the one thing that's not on that comparison.
Oh,
chart-
probably the one thing we need delivery.
No, delivery's all.
Delivery's here.
Yes, no, is that, we operate a very lean operation at the Cannabis Control Board compared to all of our neighboring states. If you look at full-time employees to licensees, that ratio for Maine, it's 1 to 7. For Massachusetts, it's 1 to 5. For New Jersey, it's 1 to 3. And for Vermont, it's 1 to 20. So,
Jeez.
and if you just cut out our lab and you just focused on the licensing and compliance staff, those numbers start to diverge even further. So I just need to make that clear that my opposition, any sort of, cold water that I might have is really based upon staff
Capacity. It's just
capacity.
based
It's
on,
not,
Which to me
Oh.
goes back to the excise tax question, that we made a policy decision that affects public health and that affects commerce in the state in the money committees that I think deserves a second look, because the governor is now controlling, saying, I want this to be safe and I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that, but then deciding that they have a slimmer budget than they need to do enforcement.
so
And our intent was
And
not
they-
that at the
and
beginning,
they
to
are-
make them independent for a reason.
right, and sadly, having come under the governor's budgeting umbrella, once you have advocated with Adam for your slice of the pie, you aren't able to advocate with us for more.
right, and we need to be able to grow with the growing responsibilities of the growing market. And we don't really have that full ability. We made a pretty cogent case that we needed an attorney position last year,
Yeah.
given the number of licensing issues, enforcement issues that we're facing. And it made it to the last day of the legislature, and then it got taken out. So I just,
And if I could say, you could satisfy some of the appropriations concern, and I'm happy to have this conversation with them or others. You could satisfy some of that by asking that the unused portion be remitted quarterly or semi-annually rather than annually. Like, you could say, okay, you could have your money sooner. We won't sequester it for a whole year, but don't take away our ability to have the money that we need to do this work well, especially if we're trying to pilot things.
Okay, so
so
that would be,
with that context, I think
I don't want to derail this bill, I think those are bigger questions that we have to have
appropriations.
in with Andy
Yeah.
and the appropriations team, because I think that would. sink
No, I'm
this
not
bill
asking-
at the
yeah.
bottom.
I would like to have
I-
that conversation in the budget.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
we fought this last year and it didn't go our way, so.
Well, it's not unlike the ethics commission.
Yes.
If I may
Mhm.
point out, there was a huge Republican effort to get an ethics commission. Now we are cutting it off at the knees by not funding it. So I'm with you because I care a lot about the ethics commission having helped create it. And now we are basically neutralizing it by not funding it. So to the events
To the
and the
events.
delivery.
Yes. So events, I think, is very important. I mean, we heard the
Yes.
need to do, sorry, this is section 5.
This is the
on page
new-
3.
Is it the new bill? We're on page. What page are we in?
Brief. So I think events in general are very important. I think this is, I mean, you say that we need to be on a path towards destigmatizing and towards a little bit more normalization, and that we have a lot of tourists that come to this town or come to this state, and they're choosing between New York, where they allow cannabis weddings and events and festivals, and Vermont, where they don't, when they want to kind of have a wedding here or have an event here. We're starting to kind of lose ground to our neighbors. And if you do want to be on a path towards direct to consumer, if that is a desire, this is how we test it out. This is how we pilot it. This is how we figure out how much staffing does it actually take. How much resources at the board do we actually need if we wanted to convert, all of our cultivators into, allow them to do direct to consumer. And so I think this is a very important policy.
Thank
And-
you. We do
Right.
too. And just remind us, we passed this last year
Right.
or a piece of this. And as I'm listening to you, it does strike me that there's a difference between private events like weddings and public events. And that maybe we should be permitting 10 of each of those, for the pilot, maybe we should be separating those out. Because a wedding is not a public event.
Right.
Maybe we should be separating out public and private events.
And
An idea.
yes.
Nice.
That's something you could do.
Yes, it's something that we did actually speak about that,
Oh,
well, behind
behind closed doors.
closed doors is that, yes, like if we only have 10 of these and we
Great
did-
minds are
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah,
We must have worked together for a long time.
Yeah. So, right, I think what we came down to in the kind of behind, we asked us to work together.
Yes, no, we're thrilled.
um,
Thank
was
you.
To increase the number to 15. So that every county and possibly two in Chittenden County would have an opportunity.
Okay, and if we.
For the record, I didn't just say in
Yeah.
Pittman County, but it's likely.
So where is that number here?
That's a Tucker. Quest.
Oh, okay, so we haven't changed that yet. The event sections are still as they were.
Right.
Well, right, because we haven't.
Okay, so I would just boldly propose that we do 10 of each. 10 private events and 10 public events.
And I know the expectation is to do these quickly. I just want to say that that's, again, just comes down to the staff. Like if we find that we actually have a very light touch on these, which, DLL only goes to about a quarter of
Mhm.
their special events. And it's all kind of based upon risk and is this person have a track record with us? They kind of spot check. California does the same. They attend about a quarter. If we find that there's a very light touch from a regulatory standpoint,
Yeah.
that we can kind of push off a lot of the concerns to the licensee or to the permittee, and we could probably do one quickly. But I just want to set the expectation.
Right.
We got to kind of do one and see how it goes.
No, I appreciate that, but yeah,
And we were also going to direct Tucker to do what we do in alcohol, which is you can't be operating your retail and your consumption license at the same time. So this is coming up with the alcohol bill. You have a wine store on one side and a restaurant on the other. You have a wedding occurring or if you have a big event occurring where you have a catering license or a consumption license, you have to shut down your retail side at that time.
And only be serving it via the event.
Exactly.
Okay,
And that, and it was just one of the questions I was gonna have for you, because you have a one license / one location per entity. So if you have a retailer that can sell in 2 different spots simultaneously, it would be a violation of that law.
so
Uh,
let's align those.
So you need to just
Yeah.
tell me one way or the other, whether you think that this.
So does that make sense to align?
It does, yes.
Then
yes.
let's
Right.
just say
Yeah,
yes.
all right, sorry. Yeah, I don't mean.
That remains.
I think that makes,
Yes, all right.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, otherwise, I think this language does, I mean, we took a hand in drafting this language. So I think what it does is it requires local sign off and any conditions rentals want to place in the event permit. And they come to us, and then we can further condition if we feel like they've missed something that we need, did your bud vendors get a overconsumption training or something along those lines, something that the town may not be thinking about. And then, and then, it authorizes to get moving quickly.
Okay. So I would entertain the separation of private and public events because I think they're very different.
They are.
And our wedding planners, I think, would love to be able to
They were.
try 10 private.
When this was being debated last year, we worked with them.
Yes, I know. But I think that when you talk about, when you talk about those, they're very different. Okay, great. So any questions on events? Because I think with those changes, events are in pretty good shape. Thomas?
So,
We have a side question. Yeah.
so really section 10, I just wanted to, I don't remember you saying it, Chair Pepper, but I sent an email to seeing you and Tucker. I'm just proposing on section 10, giving municipal authorities more clear guidance that they can regulate time, place and manner. That we've also add a grandfather clause because a concern was raised that if this goes into effect, a municipality, I would think they would do this, but then they could zone out of existence and existing operations. So just allowing that existing operators will be able to continue to operate. The city can still change the zoning, but they think that operator could continue to function.
Right.
In that capacity. If you had anything to add, but I just think that would be useful language to revise.
Sorry, that's not an event, so,
No, that's in section 10. So
okay. Oh, Tucker, we're making some progress.
I don't know if we were wrapping up or if we were jumping ahead.
So you're jumping ahead.
Oh, my
Can we just put a pin on that until we get through
I
events?
thought you were wrapping up the whole bill. My bad. I just.
No, but Thomas Chittenden has an addition. So we've noted that. Jeffrey, did you have a thought on events before we do events?
Thanks, Chair. For the record, Jeffrey Pistola, Vermont Growers Association. I'm just recalling our conversation, and maybe that's reflected in what Tucker's bringing forward, but there was discussion, everybody, to narrow the scope of the event permit to be eligible to producers. So while it's important, for instance, to have weddings and ensure that those wedding event planners are made funded, we also need to center, we believe, small producers, which is the going back to the original law.
Right.
This
Well,
Federal
the
Assembly
intent.
stated that the intent exactly was to support small producers.
Was to
So-
showcase
so-
our craft cannabis.
Exactly. And so what I ask is these two things are not at odds. Let's marry them together when we move forward with these concepts, which means centering small producers to make sure that they're able to
Oh, you had
lead in this
thought
concept.
about that for the events, for the farmers markets, that they would be for tier 1, tier 2. Did we talk about that?
That's what we had talked about.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have.
That's
Yeah.
also,
Sorry.
so the addition, David.
Quick question. Are you saying that the event permits would only be permissible for small producers?
Yeah.
There are
So-
other small business,
I-
not just a clarification.
Right, so
I don't think so, because I think if you have a farmer's market, you want to range, but I think giving a preference or priority to, I think that's what we talked about, was it?
a preference, priority, and this comes up for me again in a section that I have tried to leave agriculture out of on cannabis co-ops, because that is the best way for smaller producers to be
Advance,
able
yeah.
to have some preference to deliver or to have on-site consumption events, but to be kind of prepared to do all that comes along with that. So I want us to think less about who do we exclude. Because we were talking about, Magic Man in Essex Experience has been a great retail partner. I would want to say you can't have your store open, but you can do a parking lot concert. Where the brewery does parking lot concerts all the time, not at the same time, but like, I don't want to exclude the retailers who could shut down their operation and be operating as an event.
But if we align with alcohol, as you had
Mhm.
previously suggested, you'd have to figure that out per permit for this class.
The language allows anyone with a cannabis license is eligible for an event. We would have to determine ultimately what these 10 or 20 events are going to look like. But the only thing that I care
Tucker, we're
about,
talking about 10 private permits, 10 public permits, because they're different events. And we're also talking about giving some preference to our craft growers.
So
Or is that just a dangerous thing? Should we not be doing that?
well, listen, whether or not you do that, all I need is clarity is whether a single retailer can operate at two locations at the same time. That,
Right.
to the extent that,
Yes,
we
that's-
care about whether, and to the extent that there should be a preference, we'll do it however you want us. If you say only tier 1 cultivators can hold these events, or tier 1 and tier 2, then that's how we'll operate.
So. Okay, David, you had a thought.
No, just at this point, every grower is either a state or local, very local
Correct.
grower. Not sure why we need this distinction at this
Okay.
phase, maybe in the future. But anyway, that's just my first blush is.
It was kind of the distinction between grower, manufacturer, and retailer, not small or large.
So.
Tier 1,
You
tier
could do
2.
the-
All I heard was tier 1 and tier 2.
So I think Jeffrey has.
And maybe a point of clarity is, outside of excluding any specific license, what we would want to make sure is that explicitly producers aren't excluded from this concept as well, in that state for the name. So I think that
Reducing or exclude.
they're not excluded,
They're not
they're
excluded. Okay.
explicitly included. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's
So
Okay,
Which they are under this.
which they are
Right.
under this proposal. Okay, so I think we have at least semblance of agreement on events. Am I hearing
What about
agreement?
that last one? Why exclude producers for these events?
We're not, we're including,
Yes.
we're including the whole. But you're right, the question is going to be called, that's why I want trigger language on the federal action. And what we do if the feds, and we'll work on that as an amendment, which is what Tucker and I talked about last night. Okay, so we're in agreement on delivery, let's just on events, we'll sum that up, we'll have to do 10 private event pilots, 10 public events. And, I think otherwise it's unchanged, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, delivery,
So delivery, as I was alluding to yesterday, the point of sale is the most heavily regulated portion of our rules. This is why we require a point of sale system that can automatically integrate with our inventory tracks. This is why we have cameras and security, insurance,
it's the whole regulatory piece.
it's trying to protect that point of sale, make sure that, the seed to sale tracking, that sale is a very critical piece of that. So delivery certainly just makes me a little bit more nervous as to how we're gonna ensure that, we're meeting all of the same regulatory requirements as a retail sale. But that being said, every other state has this, where we're the only state, as far as I know, that doesn't do delivery, for adult use. So it can be done. I just want to reiterate the staffing concerns.
And I think I talked about this with or somewhere, but I want to remind people we're also a state where a quarter of the population report not being able to get to the grocery store or doctor's appointment because they don't have access to a vehicle. We're an incredibly rural state. And the intent here is to try and make sure people far outside of the realm of cannabis retailers have some access. And So that's where our language starts to steer things.
I think the language here. I mean, I obviously, if you look at the kind of provisions that you give us, explicit rulemaking authority on certain issues in Title VII for the various license types. This has a blanket, grant of authority, but, there are certain like nuanced details about delivery that sometimes, I guess we're going to have to figure out. I'm happy to go into those, although I don't want to confuse the conversation. If we feel like if Tucker feels like this is sufficient grant of authority to the board to determine things like how long cannabis can be stored in a delivery vehicle, and it be kind of a van that just sits in one place where the licensed cannabis establishment is a totally different part of the state, just can you have 5 vans if you're a cultivator? If it says in this language that we have discretion to develop procedures around, these deliveries and security requirements and things along that nature, if that's sufficiently broad to kind of help us shape what these deliveries actually look like, what's allowed and what's not, and I have a lot more comfort. A lot of my questions get answered. I do have one unresolved question about this proposal, which is, where is the sale taking place for the purposes of opt-in,
I mean, is it taking
opt-out,
place at the door or is it taking place?
at the location of the cultivator or the person who's doing the delivery?
And our cannabis sale, I mean, they're not able to be done with credit card, is that right?
In most cases, no.
So the challenge is then you can't phone in an order and have it delivered.
You would have, what you would need to do if you were a cultivator is
Set up an
have
account.
a point of sale system that you could call into. You could give your debit card number over the phone.
So debit cards work.
If I may, correct me if I'm wrong, Pepper, did the board develop direct sales regulations for the propagator license and seeds to be directly sold to producers?
They can sell to other licensees,
Directly to the public, though.
just the seeds, which the DEA
Right.
determined are hemp, not cannabis.
Right.
They actually flipped that very recently.
But the point is, you all did begin to at least engage direct sales through seeds for propagators.
Because seeds are hemp,
Right, no, I understand that.
they're not cannabis.
Right.
So we don't have any authority over it.
So those transactions are presumably taking place.
I assume so. But they're not subject to opt-in, opt-out because they're not in cannabis. So my question is, for the purposes of local option taxes and opt-in, opt-out, is the sale happening at the door of the consumer? Or is it happening at the physical address
I
of
think
the
it has to happen at the address of the producer grower, doesn't it?
of the grower?
Wouldn't that be
Okay.
cleaner?
So if that person is in an opt-out town, are they eligible to seek a permit?
But it's just, again, to go back to opt-in, opt-out, they're opting out of having a retail establishment. They're not opting out of individuals purchasing things.
So
I think that we have to hold the line at that. And I see our ledge council nodding his head.
Okay.
So I think we have to hold the line there.
okay.
So
I
I
just
think,
want to make sure that's clear.
I think we
Yes.
need to make it clear.
Right.
We can clarify that in this language.
Same as an alcohol.
Yeah,
And then just one other.
I don't pay for those alcohol deliveries. Those are paid for whenever you bought it.
One other issue, which is just a technical correction that doesn't even need to be dealt with here, it's dealt with in the finance. This goes to the finance.
It will.
Is that the only people authorized to collect cannabis excise tax and other taxes are cannabis or
Right.
licensed retailers that seek this authorization from the Commissioner of Taxes. So that we need to add a delivery permittees to that authorization, which is just adding a few words to title. Yeah, and that's universal to both this and the events.
And Chair,
Sorry, Jim, I'm ready to you.
and
There's no mirror. They're like coming out of a driveway.
correct me if I'm wrong, Tucker, but I do believe that we also discussed narrowing this delivery permit to small producers to sort of lighten the conversation and simplify the concept. Removing retailers from the equation brings in a bunch of other components that we need to discuss, which are important and we should talk about them. But just for the sake of getting this out this session, I think that focusing on, and again, getting back to intent, small producers and narrowing that scope lightens the concept and makes it more powerful. So that's something we discussed.
in a little room.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Keisha and Pepper, you're weighing up, that means limiting the 10 permits to tier 1 growers and producers.
Manufacturers, correct?
Manufacturing. To me, they all have the same thing. I manufacture. So,
It's purely a policy choice for you all. I mean, one thing that it does by doing that is you don't have this question about whether a retailer with a truck, for instance, has their storefront in Middlebury, but has a truck with a wholesale license down in Brattleboro, whether they're essentially violating the one location permit.
right, got it. So if we did limit it, and is that correct, tier 1 and tier 2?
Yes.
I'm fine with that for it's a pilot. I'm fine with that.
And it's still
David,
10, it's
Randy?
still 10.
I think I'd suggest 15 because then you could have a co-op in a county say, you guys get together and figure out how to do this.
2 for Chittenden County and 1 for.
No, I mean, actually probably less for Chittenden County because they have retailers. It would be more for I don't want to ask it. I mean, I don't want to get mad at me, but our rural places are where people would have to drive over 100 miles to access a retailer.
So 15, meaning 2 could be in one county.
Yeah, they could be in the Northeast
Exactly, which is big.
or Windsor County, which is largest county.
The
by
Windsor
land
County, 977 square miles, is the largest county in Vermont. That's your fact, which application remembered, because she's good at that, remembering those facts.
I didn't know it was that.
So are we looking at increasing this to 15? Without objection?
Is that a problem for the commissions?
It's all gonna be a challenge.
All just like with the events, we'll do this. We'll roll it out in a way that we can handle. It's not a mandate to do 15 as far as I can tell.
It's
To
a
make sure that we aren't imposing something that will cause you both the need for additional resources, the need to deploy resources differently than you think are prudent. Is it prudent for us to do 15 or is it better for us to do 10 is the question to ask you. From your perspective.
1 per county does seem sort of fair. We can.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll roll it out in a way that makes sense for us.
And it's a
If we
May.
don't get to 15
Right.
because of resource issues, then having the discretion is the important.
Then we'll unleash Jeffrey and Graham on the governor's office for the budgetary process next year. For more staff. This is a challenge. We want things to be under budget. Okay. So I hear 15. I hear that that's at least advancing it to the House is a good idea. Is that okay? Okay.
I'll just add that, because I think it needs to be said, that the optics of weed delivery is kind of very unusual, strikes me the wrong way, but being that everybody else around us is doing it.
We're
not
the
going to
only state
object to
that
it.
does.
It just as bad.
So as you know, we are in the Adirondacks a lot. I have never seen a weed delivery truck in the Adirondacks, and we have producers in the Adirondacks. Like, just never seen it, but maybe I'm just not.
I'll add to this. Our initial concept for this section, or the recommendation, was to include on-site as an option. So we're not pigeonholing necessarily producers to, for instance, there are more producers in the list that have neighbors in remote areas. We're talking like a mile or 2 from their facility, from their farm, that would love buy directly from them in a well-regulated manner and not drive, say, 30 minutes to a retail shop to have to get that same product from their neighbor. So,
We'll have that opportunity for that discussion in the next.
okay,
Direct sales, completely different topic, which I'm perfectly happy to address. Just driving weed to a phone delivery or something, just strikes me as.
Well, I will remind us that we drive alcohol everywhere.
I'll push it back.
And for me, alcohol is so much more devastating to the public first and to private lives that it is just incalculable the difference. So I think we took, oh, I'm not gonna put that there.
So,
So 15 are okay? Right.
sure. Yes.
Anything else on this language, Pepper, that you wanna,
No, I don't think so.
at
As
least
long
not
as
this-
as long as I can have a conversation with Tucker that the grant of authority for this procedure adoption is sufficient broad, then I'm okay. And I do want to just correct the record. We're not the only state that doesn't have delivery, but we're the only doing.
Well, that's okay, because we're mostly looking at
Right,
regional.
All right. Was advertising the last?
And advertising, we've decided to punt to the house.
Okay.
Well, and I'll just, for my piece, after having this discussion, outside of the committee as well, I don't even see it as necessarily punting to the house. I'm satisfied that CCB is doing the best they can internally to expedite the process and limit the need to go over every detail, try to make templates approved, etc., and that they're still catching things as the health narrative changes that need to be caught. So I care about this issue into the future, but I'm willing to let it go entirely.
Okay. Tucker.
Point of clarification on what punting to the house means for purposes of what I have.
Well, right, I would say, like, yeah,
You could just add that punting to the house.
the House shall conduct
The house shall address all the areas that we pulled
Does
from
it
this bill.
mean it's being taken out? And
It's being taken out,
away?
period. It's being taken out without further comment.
Thank you very much.
And okay, Ted will be with us at 11:30 at the latest. Oh, that may appear at any moment then.
Well,
Maybe not then.
give it like 15 minutes.
Okay. So,
So the only other thing that I wanted to mention, which does not need to be dealt with in this draft, is that the Department of Taxes has 3 cleanup provisions that they have asked to have included. They're all cannabis related.
are they drafted?
They're drafted. They didn't make it into this draft, or perhaps the finance committee could look at them. They're prepared to
Will we
testify.
propose them to the finance committee?
Yeah, absolutely. They're prepared to testify on them. They've been all approved by the administration, and they're just merely technical fixes that just clarify where, sort of how to do certain.
I mean, I'm happy. Yeah.
What is the topic?
TAC has 3 clarifications.
Going to finance to deal.
So, I mean, we can either wait till finance or if I would just wait to finance.
They're all germane to tax issues. They were going to be included in the miscellaneous tax bill, but
Happy to include them in.
because they have the word cannabis in them, sometimes things get attached in miscellaneous bills. So we wanted to make it cannabis.
So
So your friend, the LA.
No, they have the amendments.
Yeah.
They'll propose
Oh!
them.
There's an amendment to this.
Sorry, I totally missed your arrival. I
When it
apologize.
moves to finance, they can come in and propose it as,
So,
if that works. Otherwise, they can wait till the house.
I mean, I'm happy to include them if they're drafted and we're willing to have the discussion after.
I
we
think
talk
I've
about the
sent them to
LAOB.
this committee as well. I think I sent them, just, by the way, there's the language, here's the rationale from the tax department. If I haven't, I will, but I think,
But in a way, if we have it, I would think we should put it on here rather than getting it to tax. The tax is going to come back and ask this committee.
okay.
So I think, David, you had a question, and then if we just ran through those tax provisions quickly, and then if you sent them to Tucker, we could just include them in the next draft that Tucker's already working on. Or something. David,
Senator Chittenden had mentioned something about section 10, which is regulation by local.
oh,
government.
yes, he has an addition.
Yeah, and I was just curious, we kind of have been dancing with this language for a while. I'm wondering what in draft 2.1, page 12, paragraph D, what we're doing there. What's the intent?
Okay, so is this the new draft?
This is it,
Okay,
2.1.
and what page are you on?
Well,
Sorry, I'm sorry, I
that's
just
in
was
line 4.
trying to text Thomas. Could you text Thomas and ask him?
So this is not the opt-in, opt-out conversation anymore. That seems to have worked into this.
Yeah,
It just, I think what it says is no municipality shall prohibit a cannabis operation by ordinance. Is that?
Tucker,
Dr. Anderson, Legislative Council. That is actually current state of the law, and it doesn't change under the amendments in subsection D. What Senator Chittenden had asked for a couple times and the committee consented to was clarification here, because the current language in that subsection D is being misconstrued by municipalities. Subsection D in its current form prohibits what's known as effective prohibition, which is adopting an ordinance or a bylaw that completely eliminates the possibility of a cannabis establishment operating in a town that has opted in.
okay, they can't zone them out.
Right.
When S
Like shelters.
54,
Yeah.
you can't zone them out, exactly. When S
Just parallel
54,
shelters.
which was the original Cannabis Regulatory Act, was being discussed, the concern was that you would have the voters approve the operation of cannabis establishments, and then the legislative body would essentially overturn that vote by adopting an ordinance or a bylaw to prohibit the operation of the establishments. But what was being confused is that some municipalities interpreted this subsection to essentially say you can't have any bylaw that would prohibit the operation of an individual cannabis establishment. So you can't have a bylaw that zones out a part of your town
If
And
they
then-
opted in.
and then displaces a cannabis establishment. It doesn't reflect the actual structure of the current law, certainly doesn't reflect the intent. So this clarifies that these are bylaws and ordinances that completely prohibit. So effectively adopting an ordinance to say cannabis establishments shall not operate within the town of Starksburg.
Okay. We've texted Thomas to come back. We'll go to Thomas's proposal, because he has an additional proposal, as I recall. Right? Are you okay with that? This just means the
No.
town that is opted in cannot zone,
Where's the opt-in part? In this language, if you.
it's already opted in,
It's in a separate section, which is 7 VSA section 863.
which he refers to here.
So did we have not yet taken out the opt in or out, like the vote that the town has to take.
We did take that out yesterday.
Oh, I had proposed we push it to 2030, but that was, I don't remember what Thomas said.
We can discuss that again when he comes in. So let's just make a note, because I want to get Jean up here and not keep Jean.
Because the discussion really illuminated that it is not as easy as 50 people get it on their agenda. The select board has a lot of power over saying it does not advance to the voters.
Right, but in my modest experience in Windsor County, have not seen a select board make that decision once a petition.
Oh, I mean,
You have.
I have, yeah.
Okay, so it's, from what I understand, we have Chittenden's proposal. We have opt-in, opt-out, maybe to review again, although I thought we had decided to pull that. Again, it could be a house discussion for further discussion,
Yeah.
but
Most recently, a lot of this has come up around, the conflict in Gaza has come up around Palestinian territory.
yes.
There have been many municipalities asked to consider, making a statement on that question. So I just wouldn't want the conversation to become, oh, like it's either easy to get something on a ballot or that we just anticipate that this would go smoothly in every community, because that would essentially be taking a lot of power that the select board has away, and they are exercising that power right now. And however people feel about that, that power is important, right? This is like a ballot item versus
Okay,
we make these things difficult for a reason, and we be debating that entire.
okay, so you're gonna get one more bite at this apple with a date, an out date of 2030. The LAOB money, so we're gonna have Gene come up and chat in a sec, and the Chittenden. As I recall, those are the three decision points we still need to make.
The tax provisions, if you
So,
like,
yes, and then we could add the tax, let's talk about the tax provisions quickly, and then we're gonna turn to Gene.
all right, and this is coming directly from the tax department. So one is allowing cannabis retailers that have a medical use endorsement and are authorized to not collect cannabis excise tax on medical sales to medical patients. They have to submit that information to the Department of Taxes. Department of Taxes, for the sake of our enforcement actions, which is a separate license action, would like to be able to share that information with the CCP. Sometimes when people have to pay taxes, they have a process, but it's also a category 1 violation.
But you need to be in contact
Right,
about that, yeah.
yes, this is about them being authorizing them to share a certain very narrow set of tax compliance information. Another one is about outdoor cannabis growers who qualify for current use and sales tax exemptions. So you have a section of the law that says that outdoor cultivators who initiate growing outdoors are not going to be excluded from current use if they're otherwise eligible. And there's no real clarity around what initiate growing means or in statute what outdoor cultivation means. Like outdoor cultivators that use lights, have a greenhouse, a year-round greenhouse that use lights, by board regulation are not outdoor cultivators.
But we all know that current use is a minimum 25 acres or the agricultural stipulation. This is a very intense, small area of land anyway, so I can't imagine.
It's really what you guys said is that part of that 25 acres can also be your outdoor cultivation.
That seems
Right,
logical.
but because of the way that it's drafted, they're just not sure what initiates growing means versus
Means
outdoor.
preparing the ground, putting the seeds in and growing it.
So they have a rationale here that I'm happy to send to you, or you could have their policy person come in and explain why this is important to them. But this is really just, they're doing things a certain way, so the assumption is they're doing it
Do
correctly.
we have language to clarify that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
And this is just making sure that the way that they're administering this now is actually what is intended by the legislature. I think it's pretty straightforward.
okay, good.
I don't want to speak.
And what's the
on
third
everyone.
one?
The third is relating to people that are claiming a cost of goods sold deduction on their cost of goods sold deduction on their Vermont tax returns. If they're not, cannabis businesses are not allowed to claim it on their federal tax returns. And they're also claiming the household, I gotta be the property tax credit. How to calculate what the appropriate
Income
tax.
sensitivity.
Right. I will again send you the rationale, the explanation and the language for all these. And I know that the Department of Taxes would be very willing to come in. I know the time.
We could contact Sarah Muirhoff if you wanted and see if they wanted to weigh in on these cannabis
I will.
tax provisions before midnight, before noon.
It's Abby Shepherd who.
Abby Shepherd. Oh, Abby Shepherd, one of our former people that the tax department coach, hunting coach.
I've been assured that these have all been vetted by the administration through their normal legislative process.
Yeah.
And that they're all non-controversial.
Abby Shepherd is going on, and it's ABBY, and it's Shepherd with AR.
And that's it.
So if, for the next draft, because I know I feel like Tucker, they're ready to go with the next draft, maybe even if we could have this by noon. We could I'm just getting set, I'm getting an energy vibe from that corner. Yeah, you're ready to go. I'm fine with putting those tax provisions in and then it goes to finance anyway, so.
I will send the.
If there is a policy component to why those tax provisions. are-
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's a huge one. It just sounds like it's clarifying the current use piece and it's continues to allow them to claim these things on their Vermont income tax. Right?
That's what it sounds like to me. But Abby may have. I'm happy to send you the rationales they provided.
And where is China? That is my question. Did you text it?
I did, and I'm waiting for you want me to call it once.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so if it's okay with everybody, let's include those 3 tax provisions. We'll hear more, we hope, and Pepper, thank you. I think if you don't mind changing places with Jean, we're gonna hear Ed Barnett will be here any minute to go over the note he's already sent us on the fiscal note. But Jean, welcome.
Ew. Everyone.
Hey, okay.
Oh, good. We had a question.
Yes.
About your, ask of 5.6 million for this year, because it's in this very lean budget year, it's a big ask. And we know that in the past, you've sort of gotten 1 to 2 million. And so we're just curious how we landed on this and why.
Great.
Just-
Okay, so
And
I'll
couldn't find it quickly.
got it. Well, thank goodness I could get it quickly.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And Jean, I don't want to misrepresent
Yeah.
something, but I mean, I don't know what, like, just don't confirm or deny it. You can't on the record, but you had trouble getting the appropriation that we had put in the budget for you.
Sorry, which appropriation?
In the last
budget.
Last year.
Okay.
Okay. And you're saying we had trouble in the sense that we had to work like heck to get it?
From the budget office, like it
Thank you.
wasn't,
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
it didn't flow freely to you as we had
Yes.
intended.
Got it. Okay, let me give a little bit of background if that's
Yeah, we
helpful on
don't
the
have a
budget.
lot of time.
Got it.
Because we have Chittenden's proposal.
Well, I didn't want that to be out in the out.
Right, no, and so if you could kind of clarify last year's challenge
Absolutely.
and this year's end.
Yes, and for the record, my name is Jean Hamilton. I am one of the co-directors of the Land Access and Opportunity Board. And what I can show you here to start with is our FY27 budget.
Can you make that bigger for none of us?
Yes, I can
And we, I
try.
know
I'm
we
sorry,
have
I'm
this
not,
in our file.
yeah, no, I'm not like really well.
Thomas will show you how.
Slideshow there.
Slideshow, got it. Okay. Okay, so here is our FY27 budget. This is our full operating and program budget is 3.2. I believe the 5.6 that is in this bill, in this appropriation, represents the 25% recommendation from the CCB for what to allocate of the excise tax for social equity investments. So that is what the 5.6 million is. Our budget for FY27 is 3.2. That is what we really need to get this year to continue the successful momentum we have with these programs that are being launched. Within these programs are some grant and loan funds. So for example, we are right now finishing touches on a beginning developer small scale developer fund, pool of funds that is woven into the administration's Homes for All initiative and our beginning developer training program. This is something we've never even gotten to talk to you all about, but we would love to. This is a fund that could absolutely absorb and deploy more than $400,000 in FY27. Similarly, we have in this proposal for FY27 community disaster readiness grants, which you may have been seeing circulating. There are community resilience grants. In our first round, we have received a request from 37 community organizations. Those are $50,000 grants. We are very oversubscribed. So that is another place that if you all could see the benefit of allocating that 25% of the social equity money from cannabis to social equity investments, we could absolutely increase and deploy that full 5.6 into housing, and community resilience investments. So that's where we are for FY 27. And then, let me just show you, sorry, we're gonna have to,
That helps me big time. That
Okay,
is very
great.
helpful.
I'm sorry, we're here.
Yep.
So here is the kind of situation on where we have been.
Yeah, so clarify last year.
So what happened last year is we received 1.63 appropriated from the base fund. That was a big year for us. The reason that we came in with that budget proposal last year is because we were carrying forward a balance from the prior year.
Right.
As we have been building and setting up the LEOB. We did not run around and spend money that we were not yet prepared to spend, but we were building programming, anticipating that this money would carry forward. In August of last year, the administration paused and told us that that $1 million FY 25 appropriation was now reverted. It was some of the language that we received from them was that maybe the statutory language around the appropriation made it sound as though the $1 million was for board administration and not for programming. And so they wanted to clarify that language, which we did through the Budget Adjustment Act process.
So now,
Yes. So it has now, I think the BAA passed, right? Update me.
it's been signed.
Great. So the $1 million has been returned to our budget for FY 26, which is wonderful because we have an FY 26 that spends down about $3.2 million. We are in the process and have just launched many programs. So you'll see, we were the first staff hired way back in January 2024.
Yeah. Pause you and say, there are two co-directors
Yeah.
who largely then have responsibility for making sure their budget is funded.
Yes.
And that was a lot of your time and energy
Yes.
to make sure you got the money that we had
Yes.
allocated.
This happened as we were hiring free staff so that we could launch the programs that we have been building with the administration, with community partners, and with literal on the ground community members for the prior 18 months. These are well vetted programs that a lot of people have bought into. And in August, just as we were hiring staff to launch those programs, our money got put on hold. And then we had to do a lot of organizing and conversations with DFM, who was great to work with, and of course, both appropriations committees as we prepared to come in this session and focus on getting that $1 million back through the BAA. So it has taken quite a bit of time. It did create a bit of a delay in our launching, but our programs are launching. They're really exciting, and I would love to talk with every single one of you about how these programs are showing up.
And after crossover, we may make some time.
Great.
That would be
Love
great.
that.
But I think for our understanding,
Yeah.
the 25% of the excise tax, which in statute we had put given the LAOB 25% in statute.
No.
It's just that the CCB
The
recommended.
CCB was founded with a pillar of social equity. That was my understanding and
Mhm.
intention of establishing the regulated legal marketplace was to reinvest in the social equity impacts of the prior approaches
So they're-
to cannabis.
Their recommendation is.
And then
25.
CCB this year specifically did really an excellent job. Thank you, commissioners, in their report that they submitted to you all that really defines why this is important and how this money is going to be invested in the most strategic places that uplift our communities that are really struggling. Housing, economic opportunity, jobs opportunities.
Resilience.
This is the number one key to prevention is housing stability and
Yeah.
economic stability.
And I will just say, having been here from much of that debate this summer, also, we have always talked about getting to the point where we were investing beyond social equity cannabis businesses in repairing the harm done by the criminalization of cannabis. That was, and not forcing everyone to go into cannabis to have to do that. That was the intent throughout. We set money aside for healthcare, but there was discussion every single year about when we were gonna follow through on our commitment to social.
So this is a huge move going forward. Okay,
As a huge move, and if I can add one more thing, something that was exciting for me to come into conversation with the CCB is this has been a recommendation they've made every year. These investments should happen. Up until the LAAOT was operational, there was not really an easy way to do that. Like, where would those investments go? But thanks to you all, you created a highly functional board that has engaged the communities that are most impacted by the criminalization of cannabis and are actually doing this hard work researching and developing programs that directly improve and remedy these harms.
thanks so, and we're so grateful for your great.
Thank you very much.
It's terrific.
If I may, just 2 quick points.
Jeffrey, and then we're gonna turn to Ted because it's a perfect segue into Ted.
2 quick points.
Yeah.
One of the most common statements we hear from participants, licensed participants in this adult use market, is they want to see their hard-earned tax dollars put to good use. And I think there's nothing more American than that. Secondly, we feel 25% is more than reasonable. New York State appropriates 40%. So.
Oh, that's-
So just want to say that. It's exciting. Thank you.
Wow,
That is
okay.
really helpful.
So, Tucker has left the room. Are we expecting Tucker back? And if not, Pepper, can you,
Chair.
Ted, do you have something you need to scoop to? Yes, why don't you come up and let's just quickly go through the money, because then we're gonna go to Thomas's piece, which does it have a money impact?
No, I don't.
Okay, Ted, let's just go through your piece here. I think we've already made the decision to keep the excise tax as it is. Clearly, one of the major reasons we just heard. Keep that well funded. So would you be kind enough to go through your fiscal note?
Sure. I am. Well,
While he's doing that, can I just say, I was going to ask for a second bite of the apple to lower the excise tax by 1% and spell out in the bill a specific cannabis local option tax. As we are discussing communities that have not opted in, still being asked to take on a portion of the market with events or those kinds of things. And they have most communities have long said, the problem is Montpelier takes all of the resources we might have to do this otherwise.
I hear you. I'm pretty clear on where the administration is on this, and I really feel that, I mean, if we can make that case in finance if they want, but at this point in this year, take out 1% of this at the moment is just, I think, particularly just having heard the good work of the LAOB, I think that I think local option taxes are always going to have to be on top of what exists, and that's one of the things the local options people voting on those are finding out. I mean, I really feel that we should be keeping this at where we are, and the prevention piece is so important, and the LAOB work is important. The things we fund out of this are important. I just anyway, and I'm pretty clear that from what I understand, this was very important to the governor to keep the prevention as fully financed as we can. So I am sympathetic, but I think at this moment, if that discussion surfaces in finance again, fine. But I think that just getting anybody else?
Just up here to talk about.
Yes.
revenues.
Yes. Anyway, so Ted.
sure. Deb Barnett, Direct Fiscal Office. Hello again. The document that y'all have is reflective of draft 1.1, which included the decrease in cannabis excise tax percent from 14 to 10%. So you can disregard the first bullet. The second bullet is the main piece I wanted to talk with you all today. There are a lot of changes in the bill that are designed to, as I understand it, increase the potential size of the market, right? So drawing more people into the market, either through event improvements or change the potency caps. The control board generously allowed me to chat with their economist. And we both agreed that it would be quite hard to forecast.
The potency caps are gonna come back to us in an amendment, for us to chat about next week.
Okay.
I think.
I think so. I was just thinking in my head, I want Senator Chittenden to work on that with me because I don't want to break something that doesn't have majority support of the committee, but
Yeah,
we heard nuance about that.
I'd just like to add, I think it's optimistic to think that the cannabis market's going to expand because of any of these efforts. I think the dynamics will change, but I don't think the market's going to.
Okay, well, we have data year after year from the CCB about where we do lose people to the illicit market. So I don't want to keep rehashing that we have some of this information.
No, we do have this information.
Yeah, it's like we try not to be optimistic. We try to be accurate, but that's based on real data.
Right. And the CCB has asked us to do, I mean, they have supported this thing, but we're gonna come back to that next week. So we aren't set on that. And, the event permits are now 10 and 10 private events, 10 public events.
Okay.
Delivery permits are now 15.
Great. And so, yes, the next section, right, you would adjust the math. So instead of a maximum of $10,000 annually, it would be $20,000 annually. And the amounts that would go to municipalities and the regulation fund would be doubled. Delivery permits, if those are 15, it's $1,500 annually. And this is for 2 years. There's still pilots, correct?
Right.
Yes. Okay. So, that is, so those are the fee changes. Would also note that, if the employee permits are still biannual as opposed to annual, it just changes. It doesn't change the amount of money. It just changed when it hit the regulation
The
fund.
employees are 2 years, and one of our discussion points is the number 9, the product piece.
Yep. And yes, there are 2 appropriation bills. Well, in the appropriation section, there is a transfer from the general fund to the cannabis business development fund. I think the most recent transfer was $500,000, and it was one of the miscellaneous bills. I can't remember whether it was last year or the year before. And then yes, there's an appropriation of $5.6 million to the LAFB. So yes, sorry that this document is a little dated compared to what you're considering, but just the main point is, yes, reflective of general JFO practice, trying to understand behavior change. It's really hard. One of the things I chatted with the economists, right, is when folks are in the illicit market, it's hard to know what's the thing that would bring them into the regulated adult use market. Is it really, so are they really constrained on potency? Are they really constrained on price because they're getting it from a friend or some, like some sort who's doing home grow, right? It's very hard to know what's that thing that will pull people into the regulated market. So we wouldn't be able to forecast any market size adjustments one way or another. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Tucker, I think, are there any questions for Ted? Thank you. That's helpful. We appreciate. Thomas, you have a proposal. Tucker, would you like to take the seat? I think, and then we
Set this up.
help me.
So this is really a minor thing. And this is just a piece that, let me do a little more formal introduction. Why I support section 10 is I was served on the
So section 10 in the new bill or the old bill? What is the?
Why? Okay, this is what I support.
So
Enabling.
it's section 10 in draft 2.1 or section 10?
This is the local government time, place, and manner of cannabis retail.
Okay,
It is section 10 in 2.1.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's-
I actually have something in front of me.
This is good. You see, this is sometimes useful to have paper.
So what I liked about this is I served on the South Burlington City Council for 8 years. And during that time, there were advocates that wanted to bring forward the notion to put before the voters the opt-in. I did not support it at that time. And one of the reasons why I didn't, and I think other councilors share this opinion, was that we were under the impression, be it right or wrong, that should we opt in, that we would not have as a council the ability to choose the time, place, and manner where we would want, I'm going to call them pot stores or dispensaries, as you would more appropriately would call, in South Burlington. We have elementary schools along major market districts. So we just wanted that capacity. So I don't know if that is a true or false interpretation, but it was an impression that was had in in the councils out there. But what I understand about this language is it would more explicitly, clearly state that municipalities would have the ability to zone for areas where dispensaries and pawn operations could occur. So I fully support this language because I think that would give allay concerns, and there might be a dispersion and less congestion, and there might be instead of having 14 pot stores in Burlington and none in South Burlington, maybe it would just spread out where naturally it could have pot stores. A concern was raised with this language that I was hoping Tucker might be able to illustrate, that if this goes forward, it could mean that a municipality that has already opted in. So my intent is all about just making it more reasonable for cities that could opt in to be able to choose where pot stores are. This might have a unintended bad consequence of a city like Burlington, or that has already opted in, where a city could then zone out of existence where a pot store or a dispensary is operating, and that can be problematic for a variety of reasons because they already have investments there. So I was caught by Chair Pepper, maybe you can speak to this, that it would be useful or important to have some kind of caveat to grandfather in existing dispensaries, retail establishments, or otherwise, so that it's clear that if a municipality has opted in and has a pot store there, this would not allow a municipality to force them to give up their investments in time and physical spaces.
Right, and we discussed, I think, while you were out of the room, that it means that a town couldn't zone them out of existence. But in an opt-in town, you couldn't zone out.
I would defer
Retail,
to Chair
yeah.
Pepper, Tucker, whatever they think, but I just wouldn't
So
want that.
does this language reflect that?
Good morning, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Council. I think it would be helpful if we took this in little chunks and then built up to the possibility of a grandfathering clause or subsection. So to start, what the scope of local authority in the section deals with, once you've gotten to the opt-in, is conditions on the issuance of an individual license for a cannabis establishment. Now, municipalities do have bylaw authority related to zoning for operations of businesses, including cannabis establishments within their municipalities. That is affirmatively available, consistent throughout. What these subsections deal with is the ability of the municipality to condition the issuance of the license on compliance with those bylaws. And under current law, ordinances that regulate signs or public nuisances. It was very limited under 2291. Those are the two avenues of regulatory authority, either the entire universe of bylaws under 24 VSA 4414, or those two specific types of ordinances. If a cannabis establishment does not comply with those bodies of law in an opt-in municipality, when they go for renewal, their license can be suspended or revoked by the cannabis control board, municipality. Just to put that out there. With the amendments in front of you, there's an expansion of the conditions that can be placed by the municipality. The expansion isn't in the bylaw authority because it was already the entirety of that section. The expansion is in the ordinance. It allows any ordinance that a municipality has adopted under 24 VSA 2291 or under the individual charter authority for a municipality to be applied as a condition of a license. So with that potential expansion, the question has come up as to whether that should be applied to all cannabis establishments who are coming up for renewal in a given year, or whether existing licensees should be grandfathered and exempted from those conditions, and that it would only be for new licenses issued from the date of enactment afterwards. I can give you one example.
Can I just, does that mean an established business couldn't be moved if they change the ordinance? Or if they change the zone?
That means that for those cannabis establishments that exist right now as we sit in this room, when they come up for renewal,
right?
If this were to pass, they would not be required to comply with any conditions except for those that exist currently, which would be ordinances regulating signs or public nuisances.
Which existed when they were on.
Correct. And that for any new licenses that CCB is going to grant within a municipality, the municipality could, for those new licenses, apply these new conditions. And 2291 doesn't come up often in this community, does come up pretty often in Senate government operations.
Does.
You know, is a fairly lengthy enumerated list of powers. It does cover things like public specific alcoholic beverages, but you know, there are quite a few, there's 43 individual pieces of regulatory authority in that section could be applied to a license. I can give you one example that I know of language that did something similar for a particular area of regulation, and deals with preemption and preservation of certain types of operations, and that is shooting ranges. So
Yes.
they're shooting
Shooting ranges, this was a big, this was a big.
all
2005.
municipal corporations in the state are preempted from regulating firearms, components of firearms, or certain things related to shooting.
That
And-
was a, yes.
The preservation of existing shooting ranges and the fact that they don't have to comply with certain types of municipal bylaws, municipal regulation. The way that the General Assembly achieved that is that they added a clause stating that existing shooting ranges would be exempt. The court interpreted that to be all shooting ranges that had been established in fact by the date of enactment, which is something that you could do here. Probably have a separate subsection that's broken out, essentially saying that all existing licensees are exempted from these regulatory conditions. And that would get it.
Is that what you're proposing?
Unless the lawyer says that that's a bad way to go, that seems fine to me. And I welcome Chair Pepper to chime in. That's if thoughts.
I don't deal with goods and bads.
To Senator Chitten's point, we have been asked by the league and towns over and over again what their authority is here. People with zoning administrators like in South Burlington that have been there for 17 years don't understand where their authority ends and starts on some of these issues. So anything to clarify that and make the relationship between cannabis businesses in the towns more harmonious, to me, is a good thing, especially with relating to retail density and the kind of, you know, the lack of clarity here, I think, is at least a contributing factor to the fact that we have these areas of concern. So I agree. This is a policy decision. How much local control are you giving to select boards over cannabis establishments? Purely a policy decision, but I know it's a sticking point. We don't know how to advise the towns. The league sometimes hasn't given them clear advice. No offense to them. It's an unclear section of law.
So to my intent, and I think it's captured here, is for towns that opt in, okay, that give the community as much control over the time, place, and manner of those establishments as possible.
But they can't zone them out.
Okay. Well, I would say new ones, they can zone out areas, but
Right,
I just
they
don't
can't
want
zone them out of
existing ones,
existence.
right?
Right.
That's my intent.
And does that language that you just suggested, Tucker, support that intent?
So the language that is already in subdivision D1 clarifies that, which was already a part of the underlying law.
Right.
And if you wanted to add a grandfathering provision for the part of this section of the bill that expands the conditions that can be placed on a permit, I can absolutely.
The Chair Pepper's point, I certainly welcome that.
Okay.
Clarity. And
Okay.
Sure.
Absolutely. Jeffrey, when you're behind me, you got to do exactly that. Yeah, go for it.
I'm wondering, we would have concerns about this proposal if it was not limited to retailers. So we're thinking like growers and producers have the ability to operate at their home. So want to make sure that they're not included in this new proposal.
Are we,
Retailers can be sometimes growers, so if we just do retailers, that would still allow them to keep growing.
And I see the word cannabis establishments, and I know that that's a broad term, so that's why I was asking.
But that's existing law. So if you want a further carve out in the grandfathering, which is the operative provision you're discussing adding, you can certainly draft it that way. But
Okay, I don't know if pulling it somewhere else from after
conversation yesterday, I remember. But we were trying to make sure that we didn't harm indoor cultivation.
No, I thought this was about making sure in opt-in towns that we don't zone the opportunity to have
But if we,
retail
but
or,
if a town could say, this is a residential area and you now can't grow plants inside your own home.
Sophie, can you go back up to B for one moment? Okay. We took the bites, we're still chewing. Scroll down just a little bit. This is the biggest substantive change that you're looking at. And it is in the current language, the only substantive change that you're looking at. Right now, bylaw requirements apply universally as conditions on the issuance of permits for any type of cannabis establishment. That is the current status of the law. What is being changed here is that the application of ordinances as conditions on the issuance of the local permit are restricted to only two types of ordinances, regulating signs or regulating public nuisances. And there's even a carve out in public nuisance one for outdoor cultivators. If this is not reflective of the policy choices that you want to make, if you want to keep the restriction on local conditions to just those ordinances, regulating signs or public nuisances, you can get rid of that strike through in those terms, keep the current status of the law, clarify the language in subdivision D1, and the grandfathering provision is not necessary.
Previous things that we've called.
Because, yep.
And so to the concern raised by Chair Pepper, then that world, Burlington could then instead say on Pine Street, we don't want pot stores here, so all pot stores have to close. They wouldn't be able to do that.
Now, getting into specific yes or no's on that is a more complicated legal analysis because again, there are constitutional protections around things like spot zoning or totally prohibited zoning where you effectively prohibit
right, and that's what I thought we were trying to get at in this.
That is covered in D1.
Right, that's what I thought.
This isn't make or break for me. It just seems like good policy. That's what I'm trying to under here.
Can we hear from Pepper? Because I mean, this was in my mind a big discussion that I lost track of now of making sure that in the future you can't zone out private cultivation indoors.
Yeah, I don't remember that person. I didn't think we could.
That's exists in current law, but it's about the effect of totally prohibiting the cannabis establishments, operation of cannabis establishments within the municipality. It would be helpful. I can follow up with an explanation of the current status of this section of law.
Are you just saying we wouldn't harm indoor cultivators with this language?
If we take the strike out.
What I'm indicating is that there's only one change in current law, and that is the striking of those terms in subsection B.
Right, and D1.
That's the change.
So
there is a limitation on the types of
Currently,
ordinances that can be tied as conditions for the issuance of the local permit. There's currently a limitation. And you are eliminating that limitation, and you are saying that a municipality, when they're issuing the local permit, can apply a condition for compliance with any ordinance that the municipality has adopted.
So this would.
But if you get rid of that strike and you just maintain the current status of the law with respect to both ordinances and zoning bylaws and.
So this is less restrictive. Or is this more restrictive?
Okay, but
On whom?
right.
Exactly.
This still says, except that ordinances may not regulate public nuisances as applied to outdoor cultivators.
This is less restrictive on the municipalities who can then be more restrictive should they so choose.
That's an excellent way also to preserve protect the indoor cultivators would be to add them there as well. It's.
I know that was an alternative to something else we were talking about.
And that's exactly our concern. I mean,
Yeah.
a case, the use case here would be, we have a local talented legacy producer who wants to pay taxes. They want to engage the agency and get licensed. And then they go to seek that license, and the town is telling them through this expanded authority that they can't operate out of their home
Right.
when the state has determined that that's.
And we have big fights about homegrown,
Right, so,
where homegrown prevail.
so couldn't we just simply add or indoor?
You could.
And we would add manufacturing to that. The home occupancy exemption is really a moment of progress for the state when it comes to those.
Right.
We want to protect that. If that makes sense.
No, but we've allowed that for almost over a decade.
Right.
I think this is worth continuing the conversation into the House. So if there's language that's somewhere in the ballpark of that, to move this forward, I support.
So
I think it's good policy.
you were, because in this section, I think we were still trying to achieve municipal regulation and oversight of retail. That's most municipalities' major concern. Like agriculture, indoor cultivation and manufacturing just bothers people, but I mean, like, that shouldn't be a reason that an entire residential area can now no longer include indoor cultivation or manufacturing.
Sure. I agree with that.
So we're on the same page that we are narrowly trying to impact time, place, and manner of retail.
Public facing, promoted, fosters.
And this language does not achieve that as written.
But I believe that I have sufficient instruction to be able to give you what you are seeking.
Okay, so,
And it's out tomorrow.
yeah, well, we're getting housing out tomorrow, David.
Just one quick question, and that includes in the grandfathering of current businesses who are operating otherwise.
So we're wanting to add that language, the grandfathering of current businesses.
I think he had an answer where we don't need to do that, but I agree
Yeah,
that. the
that was my
intent
understanding. We
There
didn't
will
have
be
to.
grandfathered in and not be able to be shut down. This new, that's
Tucker. Can you reiterate? That, are we taking, unstriking this language?
Yes, if the intent of the committee is to maintain the current structure and not alter it. My understanding of what the committee is trying to prevent is an expansion of municipal authority that is applied to current.
That is what?
Applied to current licenses.
in off.
If you eliminate that strike through, municipal authority stays exactly the same with some added clarity, and you don't need to grandfather current
Right.
licensees.
So we keep D1 as it is.
However, I am also hearing that you want to make the policy choice of adding the indoor cultivators to the exception from the application of public nuisance ordinances as a condition of their license. To something that's not currently in the law, they would be subject to those conditions. And I can certainly add that.
I hear what you're saying, that is not the exact policy choice we are trying to make, which is if there's an indoor cultivator who is actually, I mean, but this is where we had a problem with outdoor cultivators. Instead of narrowly achieving some kind of reduction in nuisance for outdoor cannabis cultivation, we lost the right to farm in your backyard. I mean, this was like, we have serious unintended consequences when we touch cultivation and manufacturing. And that was a huge, I think, unintended consequence of us trying to do buffers, et cetera, et cetera. We should take some responsibility for, like, we forced a Supreme Court case in a way that had huge consequences for cultivation of any plant or product in someone's home. So that's what I'm trying to get at. I don't want to have huge unintended consequences in any direction. I think our intent was to try to narrowly ensure that we maintain the status quo for existing retailers and we allow municipalities to have more control over retail siting without zoning it out of existence.
Without zoning out of existence.
But we do not want to impact existing municipal authority over nuisances or, give them further reach to zone out the existence of cultivation and manufacturing.
I agree with what you just said.
Okay, but that takes us back to this thing about what we add and just try,
It sounds like lawyers now, then I don't
This
know.
isn't make or break for me. If we want to just, it is too complicated. I think.
No, I
we get
think,
more
I think
towns
you've got,
opted in.
I think
Yeah.
you've got what you need at the moment. You've got it,
But we
Your grandfather
we
should
lost
take-
some other things.
but we've locked them out. So the question is then, Tucker, do we? I guess, which I fully understand, do we add or indoor cultivation?
For manufacturing.
Or manufacturing, are we at?
But then we're taking a municipality's ability away to regulate what they feel might be a public nuisance related to those activities.
That is correct.
So that's the problem.
Now, to be clear.
Yeah,
You're not taking away their ability to regulate or abate the nuisance. You're taking away the municipality's ability to condition compliance with that ordinance, that public nuisance ordinance. So
I lost you again.
Couldn't
they can
condition,
still apply a fine. They can still go to, if there is a sufficiently public nuisance that meets the constitutional standard and municipalities adopted an ordinance under 2291
Okay.
subdivision 13, they can still abate the public nuisance.
Okay, so they can't
just can't go
preemptively
to
say
the
this is a
CCD and
nuisance.
say, do not renew their license
Right,
because they're not
okay.
compliant.
So they can't preemptively say these activities are a nuisance. They can fine them for what is determined to be a nuisance.
Yes.
But
Or
does it
require-
open the door for more people to complain that it's a nuisance?
If there are,
Because that's exactly what we dealt with the optimization.
well, again, that's the current state of the law. Right?
Okay.
So if you're trying to carve out the indoor cultivators and the manufacturers from the possibility that their license could be contingent on complying with public nuisance ordinances,
Mhm.
then you would add indoor cultivators and manufacturers to the exception. But municipalities are still fully capable of adopting ordinances, imposing fines, abating nuisances, adopting bylaws. It's just about whether a license can be suspended or revoked by the Cannabis Control Board based on a municipality saying, hey, this licensee is not complying with our local ordinances or regs. For bylaws, they've said definitively,
Thanks,
the law, the entirety of section 4414
Mhm.
applies. Municipality can say, hey, they're not complying with the bylaws we've adopted under this section. Hold their license up until they can
Right.
make compliance. They can do that with their zoning right now.
Yeah,
And they could do the same with public nuisances and signs.
I mean, so I don't want to lose track of this because
so, and we need to make a decision on this because we have to have made our decisions on this bill. Because we have housing and.
I mean,
the
I
final
would just
pieces of
say
Cannabis tomorrow.
outdoor cultivation right now is severely hampered by local government that doesn't want them there or neighbor complaints. Like, I have seen this in our district. We have had this conversation, not just about a clustered area, but an area zoned for farming where we're very clear that anywhere that allows for agriculture should be also allowing for cannabis. And that upended all of agriculture law for us to try and resolve that matter. I am concerned right now that even as it stands, we have incoherence that relies on neighbor complaints and someone doesn't like the smell of something to drive outdoor cultivation out of certain communities. And that could now apply to indoor cultivation and manufacturing.
We don't want that.
I don't want that. I mean, we tried to be very narrow in our thing about the buffers to avoid
Right.
that.
So.
So I need a lot of lawyers to like tell me what will happen.
I think our Tucker and Pepper clear on what we're hoping to accomplish.
I believe so.
Because,
I-
so could we come up with language that satisfies this without our? Are we okay on understanding where you want us, where we want to go on this at the moment?
I feel okay.
Okay,
I feel okay.
okay, great. So then we have two, and I'm gonna ask you your indulgence in just like 5 more minutes. We have the tax provision for adding, Tucker getting those. The opt-in, opt-out is the only last discussion point for our next draft, and because I'm really gonna wanna hope we can vote on the next draft. So the opt-in, opt-out discussion, I thought we had settled on it coming out, but Keisha also proposed that we give towns until 2030 to make this decision.
I just assume that whoever comes back next year then decide to put it on 2028 or 2030. I don't know if we need that this time in 2026, put a marker out 4 years from now.
Yeah, because we're really, my understanding is you wanted to call the question.
Right, I mean, that's
Towns making.
the policy effect of that is giving them 4 years to think about it instead of just saying, like,
Well,
in
but-
2028, I might advocate for 2032, because it's saying you don't just have 1 or 2 years to contemplate having an orderly conversation about this. You have 4 years. And
Yeah, but then they'll lose sight of it, I think.
The other point I made was I would just go off to take this up because this seems to be in their bailiwick and I don't know what the implications are.
Why should we
Accounts
force
to-
Give anything.
what was the thing?
What's the impetus? The imperative.
I mean, so we never took significant testimony, but we heard there are towns that have said, okay, maybe 50 or 100 of you got together and said you want the ballot item, but we still say no.
Jeffrey, you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, so the reason why, thank you, retail opt-in reform is important for the industry, is because there's very much a structural bottleneck. There's too much product being made, and it's not reaching the consumer. It is not reaching the consumer. And what I mean by that is there's about, what we estimate, we've only captured about maybe 40% of the customer base in the state. And that means that we're allowing the illicit market to out-compete us. This is a mechanism to not just onboard more tax revenue, but also get at the intent of the original statute, which is to allow for small producers to effectively.
This cannot be overstated. I want to remind people, this is the language for alcohol from the 60s. Like, when you have a patchwork of access and laws, you push people to get on the roads and make less positive decisions than accessing something local.
To your point, that 1932, we repealed the constitutional amendment banning alcohol, and then the 60s. So that's like a 30-year time.
I have tried to say every day to everyone, let's please leap over the 100 years of prohibition that has led us to continue to do alcohol every year and upkeep.
And I can add to that, what's compounding this issue is, and I don't want to impugn the agency at all, but there is a pause on retail licenses. And that we're going on
Yeah.
maybe 2 years now, don't quote me on that.
Right.
And that is compounding this issue for producers and also customers.
Right. And where a significant portion of a town has said, we want this to come to a vote, and there are 5, 3, 8 people who can say no. It won't be on the ballot.
Maybe elected officials in town.
Yes, because when.
Yeah, and we
Just want to make sure that's.
stopped allowing them to do that for alcohol at some point.
And what was
because it's
disturbing
not good
about-
for public health.
Tucker's testimony the other day, or yesterday, whenever the hell it was that even with the petition, which we agree is not onerous, even with the petition, there is no requirement for select board to then put it on the ballot.
That's right.
To that point, do you see a way, and that's something I would support, is making it easier for petitions to force this on a ballot? Is that
Oh.
something that's doable?
Yes,
That
Easily
is
replicable.
doable.
That I could
that
subscribe.
is doable, but that's a GovOps issue,
There you go.
just in general.
I would support making it so that a certain percentage of the voters.
I think if you
force it
said
to
it
go
was,
to-
well, but I think if you said it was a GovOps issue, you'd be opening up the conversation about all ballot items. I think what we're saying, well, because
California's.
That's what I would think. I
Why
would think
not?
that would be the fair one, is because
As a
this is an
former-
issue that goes well beyond cannabis.
I don't want to do it all that.
and right, anyone who's been on GovOps has had this
Well,
debate.
I'm gonna go ops, I've seen it.
Voters let me come back. I might ask to be on GovOps in the afternoon, so I'd love to dig into it then. But for now, I feel like I would love for your committee to go.
GovOps is a great.
I would only want this very narrow opportunity for this one issue because we have, not all other ballot issues have an opt-in, opt-out provision in law. So I think this is a special case. And if we could do that, then it would go, it might go to GovOps or it might not, depending on how the chair feels about whether he'd like to have a flyby on. My guess is our chair would rather not have a flyby on this, but I'm just channeling him because he sits next to me. For many years, he sat next to me.
If you're
So-
greenlighting that language, I would just advocate for contours where it's a percentage of the registered voters rather than a flat 50, because that 50 means different things, different.
If there isn't a flat 50, it's a percentage of the
It's
population.
5%, yeah, registered voters, yeah,
5%.
of registered voters.
Yeah, current law is 5% for registered voters. Tucker, if we could draft language, I would be happy to do that. Because if that's the bottleneck, that's the real bottleneck, is that select boards, if a proper petition has been filed, then the vote should be called. Are people okay with that? Okay, great. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a new draft with the proposals and the work that's been done. Thank you all for sticking with this.
I just don't, you know how sometimes our pro temp will be like, you didn't mention enough times, so it's over. I want to make sure the co-ops piece, people understand what I'm trying to achieve there, and that's in the next bill.
I can certainly draft that for the committee and to explain how that would be drafted.
That's it, the events piece.
Currently, there is a cooperative corporation structure under which certain types of agricultural corporations can join and organize, register with the Secretary of State's office. This would allow cannabis cultivators to form a cooperative corporation. So it would either be, in order to not chafe against any federal law that agricultural rights, it would either be creating a new section in Title VII that replicates the cooperative corporation structure and allows cannabis cultivators to form those corporations, or it would just be a one-line section in Title VII separate from the current structure that says, yes, cannabis cultivators can organize under that Title X.
Thank you for raising this. From what I understand of this, I fully support this. I think it will help these small growers start to share full resources and might also start defragmenting this industry. I don't think it will expand use of marijuana. And so if there's capacity to take this on, I have a constituent that's made a really strong case that this would just help the small guy.
Small lady.
Small lady, small person,
Small people,
small people.
only small people. Well,
That's what co-ops do.
I'm
That's
thinking
what they
Wizard of
do. They
Oz.
create collective power and opportunity.
We could give the House some more stuff to work on.
So for the next draft, if it's a simple one-liner, let's add it. I know that this is a big, I know that that's a big hope for cultivators. Let's take what we have. I think we've addressed all the thorny issues. We've taken out things that were tough for people. We have a couple of things that may be amendments. And the federal piece, how we respond with a regional compact, that's one of them. If there's federal action, and the other is possibly potency, although we're not going to go spending a lot of effort on potency if it can't get out of this committee. So those are amendments. Those would be for next week. Right now, I think you've got everything you need for a new draft. Correct.
Yes.
And the question is, what is your life like?
What is my life like?
What's your life like for draft?
Yesterday,
And no, the question is realistically.
yesterday evening, someone invited me to an 8:15 meeting and I said, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And then another person reminded me that they were talking about 8:15 in the morning. So how is my life right now? It's a little
Yeah,
busy.
it's a little varied. So you're in demand is the whole point of my comments. You're in high demand as we get towards deadline.
It's
So
this for tomorrow morning. It will
This
absolutely. be
is
ready
for tomorrow morning.
Great.
So why don't we, okay, this is my proposal, that we start with cannabis, maybe not at 8:15, but at 8:30.
Is that called a waking thing? Sorry.
There isn't cannabis yet that's the equivalent of rental. In fact, it has the opposite effect of rental, I think.
Did you send it to?
So the question is, at 8:30, would you be able to have a new draft for us by 8:30?
Yes.
Thank you. We will do cannabis at 8:30, and then we will vote on that, and then we will move to housing, and we will vote on that. At the latest by 11:25, or we will come back during lunch. So are people hearing me? If we don't finish on housing, we will come back during lunch to finish housing. Okay? Because we're getting housing out of here. It's a temporary home here, and we're moving it up. Thank you. We're going offline. Good work, everybody.